Where do we come from is one of the biggest questions that's out there, right? Where are humans from? We didn't magically appear, but we do have evidence for where our origins lie. I want to emphasize this point. So we're looking at the origins of us, humans. This is caused by a climate change on Earth, right? So if you were to look at the Earth 12 million years ago, it would look like a very different place than what it is today in terms of climate. 12 million years ago, the Earth was warmer than it is today. It was covered in rainforests and jungles, particularly Eastern Africa. This is a recreation, an artistic recreation of a ape called Proconsul. As the years went on, so starting 12 million years ago or so, the Earth begins to cool and enter an ice age. Not the last ice age, but an ice age. And these forests begin to disappear and are replaced with grasslands. Particularly in Eastern Central Africa, these grasslands take over and become savannas, right? Savannas are the ecosystem that are in place now. And these organisms either had to go extinct or adapt to the new environment that they live in. And that's what happened with this group of apes here. They became savanna animals. That's what we are. Human beings are savanna adapted organisms. So, what are we? So the family of animals we belong to are called hominids. Our genus is Homo and our species is Sapiens. We're the only surviving members of the genus Homo. There have been many, many others, however, but that little branch of the family tree is full of extinct animals, right? We call these animals hominins, and they are our ancestors or relatives of them. So these are members of the genus Homo, and then they're direct ancestors. The thing that makes these guys different, so this is Lucy, you might have seen Lucy before. So Lucy is an Australopithecus, and Lucy was an ape that was bipedal. Every other aspect other than walking on two legs, extremely similar to chimpanzees. Brain capacity is about the same, except these are adapted to live in savannas, to walk on two legs. There are other hominids that we can look at, but I really just want to focus on Lucy. She's an example of a transitional fossil. So it shows a transition from the other great apes that we see that walk on all fours to bipedal members of that family like we are. So how do we find out this stuff about Lucy? How do we know that Lucy walked on two legs? How do we even know about this animal in the first place? Well, we have the fossil record. We do have fossils of Lucy, right? And there's some other things about the fossil record that can help us learn about evolution. The deeper down you go into the rock layers, the older the fossils. Like if you fill up a trash can, right? If you fill up a trash can, the oldest trash is going to be at the bottom, the newest stuff is going to be at the top. It's called the law of superposition, and this is true of fossils. Every fossil that I'm going to show you, we know its age through that particular principle, in addition to some radiocarbon dating. All right, how do we know Lucy was related to us? And how do we know we're related to these other animals? Well, one of the biggest clues is homologous structure. All land animals, for instance, if you look at this picture here, there are a group of organisms called tetrapods, and every single bone, for instance, in your arm, is the same setup as every other tetrapod that lives on Earth. Whether it's a horse or a whale or a bat, right? Those animals all have the same bones in their limbs that you have in your arms and legs. They're just specialized for different things. So the homologous structure comes into play here in that we have the same ancestor where we get these parts from, but maybe they have a different function. This is a clue of common ancestry. So for instance, in the great apes, color vision is something that's rare in mammals. In fact, primates have color vision because what is their primary diet? You need color vision to see. Fruit, right? We also have a vertical posture, a more vertical posture, if we're talking about the other great apes. We have smaller olfactory organs, which means you have a bad sense of smell. The thing is that this is all at the expense of a great big brain. This is what makes you a primate. So this is what we have in common with even lemurs and monkeys, is that you have hands with fingernails instead of claws. The thing that defines primates is that feature. But if we look at the other great apes, you see that there's an extreme similarity in hands. Our hands are set up for grasping at things, for climbing. We have hands that are unique, and we have a thumb that's opposable that allows us to do things like use tools. Let's check this one out. This is one of my favorite things here. So vestigial structures are a type of homologous structure, but they're not being used anymore. So they're leftover parts is one way to think about them. Classic example, inside of every single whale is a set of hip bones for back legs. They just float inside of the muscle and fat tissue in their body. They're vestigial structures. I'm sure you can think of a few with humans, right? How about the appendix? If you've had your appendix taken out, you never needed it in the first place. In fact, your appendix is a liability. But if you were a gorilla or a chimpanzee or a koala or any other animal that eats mostly plants, you would use that extra length of intestine to digest cellulose in that plant matter, which is really tough to digest. We supplement our diet with foods that are not vegetable matter, and so we don't really use our appendix all that much. In fact, your appendix can get infected and kill you. We have wisdom teeth. Your wisdom teeth, if you're lucky, never come out through your gum line. They just stay in there and they just chill out. If you're unlucky, they can erupt and it really hurts badly. They can push up against your teeth, make your teeth crowd each other, and this can be really painful, and you can get them removed. If you lived in a time prior to modern medicine, this might be something that would kill you. What do chimpanzees and gorillas use their wisdom teeth for? They use it for chewing, right? It's just an extra set of teeth for chewing plant matter. We can see that we're losing teeth and our jaws are getting smaller. Okay, the reason why we have color vision is because primates cannot make their own vitamin C. All other mammals can. This is something that is a big clue that we have a common ancestor with these animals, and this is not something that's beneficial. It's harmful, in fact. It causes scurvy. But it didn't affect primates because their primary diet when this mutation occurred was fruit anyways, right? They were already getting vitamin C. It's an inherited trait. It's vestigial. It's left over. We have some instincts, some inborn behaviors that humans and all other great apes participate in. Here's the vestigial behavior though. If you do this test with a baby, it's also fun. You can put your thumb in the baby's hand, right? And if you rub the baby's palm, the baby will grab onto your thumb with enough strength that it can actually hold up its own body weight. Right? If you put both thumbs in their hands, you can lift the baby up. The baby is strong enough to support its own body weight. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. Here's the other thing though. That's if you do their hands, right? You do the same thing to a chimpanzee baby, it'll grab on the same way. Try this though. Here's the second test, second part of this test. Try that with a baby's foot. Baby human's foot. When you rub against their foot, right, they will try to grab on with their toes. Yeah. And you know what a baby chimpanzee does? When you do the same test, they do the same thing that they do with their hands. We have a leftover characteristic. What is that grasping instinct for? If you're a baby chimp, it's really handy. They're holding on to mom. Now, humans don't have body hair for babies to hold on to, but they still have those instincts. They're still strong enough to hold on. One last one, or a couple more, actually. So vestigial traits. You have a tailbone. You have a tailbone. It's called your coccyx. It's at the end of your spinal cord. It's in your hips, right? And every once in a while, somebody is born with a tailbone detached. So sometimes kids are born with tails. Like this is an X-ray photo of one. And then here's some photos of babies born with tails. We have bones for tails. We have the genes for tails. We would not have these. We didn't have ancestors who also had tails. Body hair. All right, goosebumps and body hair. When you get goosebumps, it's probably because you're scared or it's cold, right? The hair on your body raises up. That's what the goosebumps are meant to do. They're little connection points for hairs. They cause your hair to rise up, right? Well, that's a fight or flight response in great apes. You might think of it this way. With dogs, when they get scared, they poof their hackles up, right? Their hair poofs up so they look bigger to predators. That's the same thing that's happening with us. But we don't really have a lot of body hair, so there's not a lot of difference. That's the vestigial behavior. Another piece of evidence for evolution is embryology. When we study the embryos, the developing babies of organisms, the more closely related they are, the more stages of development they have in common. So that's a baby chimp and a baby human next to each other. For instance, just give you a couple examples. As a developing baby, early on, you have gills. And all tetrapods have gills, and all fish have gills during development. We have a common ancestor with fish, right? We are vertebrates. Fish are vertebrates. So you also have a tail for a huge part of your development as a baby. Your gills reduce and go back into your body, and you start to develop lungs. Actually, the stages of evolutionary development line up pretty clearly with the stages of embryological development. You kind of see a sped up version of what happened in natural history. DNA evidence, right? So you've heard this before. Humans and chimpanzees are about 98% similar genetically. That's true, right? The more closely related any two organisms are, the more DNA they'll have in common. So this is biochemical evidence. We can actually use the rate of mutations to figure out how long ago you have a common ancestor with that other species, which is called the molecular clock. Okay, so what makes us different? We are a member of the genus Homo, right? So the genus Homo is our genus of animals, and the thing that makes us us is tool use. There's nothing that we have that no other organisms have, right? So you might think, okay, well, what makes us human? We got big brains. Well, we definitely don't have the largest brains in the animal kingdom. Compared to our body mass, we have the largest of any animal, right? But big brains is not a thing that's unique to us. Tool use is also not unique to us, but the complexity of the tools is, and the ideas that we can pass on with language are unique to us. That's Homo habilis, the first member of our genus. Tool use is the thing that we use to distinguish between Australopithecus and our group of animals, the genus Homo. All right, so the big thing here is brain size, right? Your brain is big compared to other primates. Here are fossil hominins. So starting at the very earliest there, A is Sahelanthropus, which is your common ancestor with chimpanzees. And then we can zoom in. Let's see if we can notice any trends here as we move forward through the fossil record. Yeah, brain case is getting bigger, like very obviously. The brain case is getting larger. There's some other things that are happening here, like face is getting smaller, the snout is shortening, jaw is becoming smaller as well. So we're teeth, right? Teeth are getting smaller.
Yeah.
And it's all to make space for brain, right? Almost all of these adaptations are a consequence of larger brains. We're getting close to modern humans now. One of the things that distinguishes us, Homo sapiens, from the other members of our genus is we don't have a brow ridge. So you notice where the modern humans appear here is that guy there.
Yeah.
So that's a Cro-Magnon, which is archaic humans. And then there's us, a modern human right there. All of these fossils, by the way, that I've just shown you are close to each other, right? So one of the evidences for evolution is called biogeography. Fossils of animals that are related to each other tend to be closer to each other on the map.
Yeah.
And so as you go down the fossil layers, you're still going to find animals that are near each other. So human beings and our ancestors were from East Africa. All humans are African in origin. So these are the locations of all these fossils, and the further ahead I go, the more recent we're looking at fossil layers. Yeah. One of the defining things for us is we're bipedal, right? We walk on two legs. Bipedal, bi means two, ped means foot. These are called the Laetoli tracts. And this is in, again, East Africa. A volcano had just freshly erupted, and members of Lucy species walked through that ash. And it was a perfect situation to leave behind fossil footprints. There was a male and a female. The female was either pregnant or carrying a baby, based on the way that her feet are pushing into the soil. This is not a modern footprint. This is not a modern human footprint. You can see that the big toe is detached a little bit. There's that spinal cord connection I was talking about. Your spinal cord connects underneath your skull. If all we had from Lucy was her skull, we would still know if she walked on 2 legs or 4 legs. Because Lucy's skull connects to her spine underneath her, rather than behind her head. Like a gorilla's spine connects to the back of its head. Okay, last thing here. Your jaws are much smaller than other great apes. So this is a gorilla on the left, and there's a Australopithecine in the middle, and then a modern human on the right. You can see that your jaws are much less long. But we have fewer molars than the other great apes do, right? We have smaller teeth, smaller jaws. This allows for a couple of things. The big one is language. So great apes, we can teach sign language, but we can't teach vocal language too, because they don't have the range of motion that we have in our mouths. So that's it. In a nutshell, brains get bigger over time, right? Jaw and teeth size goes down. We go to bipedalism as a mode of transportation. Tools, language, culture, these are things that all develop more in humans. And then we go from a purely vegetarian diet to a hunter-gatherer scavenger diet. And that's it. That's all.